Good evening, Sarawak. It's 8 p.m. Friday, January 15. This is DDWeekly. It's good to be with you. I'm Karen Bong. We are here to bring you a recap of the top news stories that made headlines across Sarawak for the week. For the first time in 50 years, a state of emergency was declared by Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah across the country for 8 months to combat a sharp increase in COVID-19 cases. The palace said the emergency would last until August 1st unless cases were brought under control earlier. With the emergency in place, it suspends Malaysia's parliament, state legislative assemblies and political activity, including general election, state election, by-elections, and grants the state new powers, including to take over private hospitals and deploy additional military and police forces. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, in a televised address, stressed that the emergency declaration was not a military coup and curfew would not be enforced, adding that he was committed to holding a general election once the country's outbreak was brought under control. He also gave assurance that Malaysia will continue to be open for business according to standard operating procedures, despite the emergency and several states in Peninsular Malaysia placed under movement control order until January 26. Meanwhile, Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari Tun Openg emphasized that Sarawak will respect and comply with the King's decision on the emergency declaration. He was optimistic that the state election can be called once the COVID-19 situation improved, as the King can lift the emergency in several states in the country. On political developments, Sarawak People's Aspiration Party, Aspirasi, has unveiled 3 potential women candidates dubbed the Aspirasi Angels, who will be contesting under the party in the upcoming state election, with Janet Low to fight in Palawan, Jess Lau in Maradong, and Josephine Lau in Dudong. Aspirasi President Lina Su said that all the 3 candidates are high-powered ladies with great success and proven track record in multinational marketing company. She thus called on the people in Cebu and Serike to give their support to send them into the State Legislative Assembly so that they can be the people's voice in making demand for Sarawak's political, social, and economic future. Aspirasi has also nominated Ching King as its potential candidate for Repok. Wong, who has spent 20 years in the education sector, is currently a grassroots worker and political activist for Sarawak's sovereignty rights. Parti Keadilan Rakyat (PKR) Sarawak has insisted that they will not give way to Parti Sarawak Bersatu PSB in the Bacalalan seat, which is presently held by Barubian in the upcoming state election. PKR Sarawak Secretary Joshua Jabeng said that the party will contest in the seat. He also clarified that Baru was never sacked but left the party voluntarily, and the party will not condone to such conduct. But the situation for Batu Lintang Assemblyman Si Chi Hao was different, as Joshua explained that Si was sacked for having found to have questionable loyalty to the party following his statement about intending to form a new party or join another local party, which was eventually PSB. Here's a little good news for Sarawakians. Finance Ministry will expedite the Bantuan Prihatin Nasional Phase 2 payments totaling 2.38 billion ringgit to 11.06 million eligible recipients, who comprise 10.6 million BPN recipients and about 460,000 new recipients. Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz said payments to the B40 and M40 groups would be credited directly into their bank accounts starting January 25th and 25th respectively. Those without bank accounts would be able to receive payments at Bank Simpanan national branches from January 25th onwards, subject to the bank's standard operating procedure guidelines. As for recipients in Sabah and Sarawak who do not have a bank account, he said payments would be made from early February to April 1st at locations to be announced at the end of this month. Coming up next is more updates on Sarawak development. Moving into urban development, the Ministry of Local Government and Housing, in collaboration with Sarawak Multimedia Authority SMA, has begun the installation of 800 closed-circuit television CCTVs across 200 sites in Greater Kuching to create a safe, secure environment for the community. Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Sim Kui Hian said the installation is expected to be completed by the end of this year. He said the CCTVs installed at areas of Kuching North City Commission DBKU, Kuching South City Council MBKS, Kota Samarahan Municipal Council MPKS, and Pedawan Municipal Council MPP will feed the Sarawak Integrated Operations Centre SIOC with real-time footages and data around the clock throughout the year. It will serve not only to monitor crime activities and traffic flow, but also as early warnings for flood and other natural disaster, as well as to protect assets around the city. This project is part of Sarawak digital economy agenda to accelerate economic growth via smart city concept to provide urban dwellers an improved quality of life amidst a sustainable green environment. Widespread flooding triggered by incessant rainfall coupled with the king tide phenomenon a couple days ago have forced people living in low-lying areas in several districts across Sarawak, including Kuching, Sirian, Semunjan, Kota Samarahan, Miri, and Bintulu to evacuate their homes. As of yesterday morning, 1,473 people have been evacuated to 21 relief centres, with Kuching district recording the most number of victims at 1,179 at 12 relief centres. According to State Disaster Management Committee Secretariat, Sirian recorded 200 evacuees at 5 relief centres, Semunjan 40 evacuees at 1 relief centre, Kota Samaran 34 evacuees at 1 relief centre, and Miri 20 people at 2 relief centres. Streets and homes, commercial premises and even hospitals were inundated in water, with some places reaching waist-high flood waters. In preparation in the event that flood situation worsened in Kuching, Kuching South City Council MBKS has enlisted its stadium in Pending to be opened up as evacuation centre. In the past few days, one house at Kampong Anasade in Upper Pedawan was washed away by landslide, while another was hanging by the thread, but luckily no one was injured in the incident as the house owner was not home at that material time. Residents in 13 villages in Bawuk were cut off as water continued to rise and submerge the main roads connecting to Kuching, including the junction to Tondong near Jalan Batukawa, Jalan Jagoy Bogak, Jalan Grogo, Bawuk Town Traffic Light Intersection, Kampong Singai at Jalan Apa Sagong, and Jalan Serikin Bawuk. 3 dogs and 1 kitten died after waist-deep floodwater battered the Sarawak Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals SSPCA animal shelter at Kota Sentosa overnight. Volunteers rushed to the facility at midnight to release the dogs from their pens and cages, as well as moving them in lighter kennels to higher ground as floodwaters rose and poured in. Now, let's take a look at the COVID-19 situation in the state. In the past 7 days, Sarawak saw a record surge in new cases after 740 infections were reported. Pasai cluster in Cebu recorded the biggest jump in new cases to become the biggest cluster with 462 cases to date. With that, the cumulative number of COVID-19 cases in Sarawak now stands at 1,920. Apart from Pasai cluster, there are 6 clusters still active in Sarawak, namely Bukit Sekubong cluster in Sabau, Jelita and Bahasayap cluster in Miri, Tabuan Keranji and Stutong clusters in Kuching, and Mado cluster in Meradong. Kuching, Cebu and Miri remained as red zones, and Sabau was elevated to orange zone, while Serike, Lubok Antu, Beluru, Dalat, Selangau, Samarahan, Simangang, Bukit Mabong, Meradong, Bintulu and Limbang remained as yellow zones. To stem the soaring numbers of infections in Cebu, State Disaster Management Committee SDMC has announced that Cebu, including Kanowit and Selangau, will be placed under Movement Control Order MCO for 2 weeks starting midnight Saturday of January 16. Kuching, including Samarahan and Syrian, Serike, and Miri are still under Conditional Movement Control Order CMCO, which will last until January 26. Under CMCO, inter-zones travel between Kuching, Cebu and Miri, as well as interstate travel from Peninsula Malaysia, Sabah and Labuan have been banned except for essential services whereby police permit is required. All arrivals into Sarawak from January 16 onwards are also required to undergo COVID-19 tests 3 days before entering the state. All economic sectors are allowed to operate as usual from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. with strict compliance to standard operating procedure guidelines. However, religious, entertainment and social activities are not allowed. With the new academic year commencing on January 20th, Education Ministry said that in CMCO areas, preschoolers, primary students, Form 1 students and students sitting for public examinations of SPM and STPM will attend physical classes, while Form 2 and 3 will continue with home-based learning. On the latest SOP for Chinese New Year Festival that will fall on February 12 and 13 this year, State Disaster Management Committee SDMC announced that celebration can only be held on the first day and limited to 20 close family members. Meanwhile, the Chinese New Year Bazaar, held annually at Kunyalang Park, has also been cancelled this year. Kuching South City Council MBKS Mayor Dato' Wee Hon Seng said the decision was made in view of the 4th wave of COVID-19 in Sarawak. Furthermore, the result of an online poll conducted by MBKS recently also indicated that 86% of the people disagreed for the bazaar to proceed. That is the DDWeekly news for this week. Thank you for watching. I am Karen Bong. Have a great weekend.